Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, and for today's cards, I am part of Waffle Flower's April celebration blog hop, and we are focusing on partly the new release, and the other part is the birthday and basics bundles that were released last month. I'll have more info on my blog. So I pulled out a couple of the new birthday sets that I hadn't had a chance to use yet, and to create my backgrounds, I am using Distress Oxide sprays and doing some rather random masking, at least on this first one, because I wanted to do like a rainbow of colors. So I used a combination of just scraps of copy paper. I used a piece of acetate. I found the acetate gave me much crisper lines. So if you really want crisp lines, if you want to mask off an area, whether it be to sponge or especially with sprays, either use acetate or masking paper that would stick, straight flat down onto your card front. So I'm just spraying these onto Neenah Classic Crest 110 pound cardstock as well. I'm not using like watercolor paper or anything special. This was more an experiment. This video would be too long if I included all the pieces that I ruined by just dropping the acetate onto them, or like I made such a mess. I had fun though. Like these colors and the sprays are just fun. So I was kind of doing a very random, not quite geometric sort of pattern with this one, so I could fit all the colors on of the rainbow, of course. So I just kept going along, kind of moving things around using my splat box here. If I was going to redo this again, I would use one of my Simon Says Stamp like card kit boxes and spray more straight down. I think I would get better results that way when I'm like doing so much fiddling here. So for this one, I used picked raspberry, spiced marmalade, fossilized amber, cracked pistachio, and then I'm going to use wilted violet at the end. Oh, and mermaid lagoon, of course. And mermaid lagoon is pretty intense. The other, like the fossilized amber and the spiced marmalade and even the picked raspberry, I ended up spraying more than once just to intensify it a bit more. But the mermaid lagoon and the wilted violet are pretty, I call them powerful colors. So after they're sprayed, these dry really quickly too. I've mentioned that in other videos. I really, really love how, even though they're an oxide spray, so they're, a mixture of pigment and dye, they dry really quickly. So for the second card front, I just used a piece of acetate that I kind of cut into a square. So I masked off like the center area of this card front, and I sprayed Vintage Photo oxide spray. And then I just covered all of these corners basically with pieces of acetate this time. So that way I could kind of see better what I was doing to make sure that they were covered. And then I'm going to use peeled paint, and I'm going to spray that in the center. So once I got everything sprayed, all that acetate is just easy. I just rinse it off in the sink. You could wipe it down, whatever. I just rinse it off in the sink and then wipe it with a cloth, and I can use it for other projects. So after I did that, I set those aside, and then I am using the Tumble On stamp set and the Batter stamp set from Waffle Flower. And I stamped these again onto just Neenah Classic Crest cardstock with Ink on 3's Blackout ink. And then I'm doing a very simple copa coloring. I am not doing blending or anything like that. I am literally just laying down a color. So like for the skin, I just kept it simple since I was doing so many. And I just did E50, and then I go in with my E21, just add that little tiny bit of shading, but I'm not going to blend. I'm not going to do anything. That's something I find really appealing about these little character images, is you just don't need to. One, they're smaller, so there's not a whole lot of space for blending, and two, you just don't need to. You can if you want, but you just don't need to, if that makes sense. Like they're just cute on their own. So I did all their skin, just kept it all the same. The hair, I just did one color. I didn't even bother with a second. And I just grabbed like some various browns, like yellow, kind of a orangey sort of color, just to give them, different hair colors. And colored all of those in. With the Batter stamp set, I used like all the same colors, like for the skin and hair and whatnot. But with those ones, they're all wearing hats. You can't really see their hair, so it's kind of irrelevant. So I'd done that. And then off camera, I had kind of laid the stamps out on the background, so I knew which one was going where. And then I marked with pencil on each of them, which one was, you know, yellow, pink, orange, etc. And then same thing, I'm just doing really simple, just 2 color blends for all of their little outfits, just keeping it simple. So just adding a lighter color and then just going in with a shade darker and adding that little bit of definition and then just leaving it at that. I don't even use my white gel pen. I know, shocker. But as usual, I'm part of it too. So time right now is at a absolute minimum. It's been one thing after another. So these images though are so cute. They just work. I love Waffle Flowers little character sets. They just, every time I look at them, I don't know, they just make me smile. So I did all my basic coloring for that one. And then I'm doing the exact same thing for the batter stamp set, keeping it super simple, just using cool grays for all the white areas. And then I'm going to do some light blues for the one team and color in all their little hats. And then I'll just do, again, a shade darker just to give it that little bit of definition. But you honestly wouldn't even need to do that if you didn't want to. Like, again, they're cute, and the size and just the style of these images lends themselves really nicely to really simple coloring. So went in, did everything at once like I always do, and then I'll use a really simple red combo for the opposing team. And then after I do that, I'm going to do like the bats and the mitts and whatnot. So I just go along, color everything in, kept it really, really simple so that I could do both of these cards and get everything like done. And then I'm going to use the coordinating die cuts. I didn't have this on camera. My camera footage, that's another reason why things just times at a premium. Things are just being finicky and technical issues and all that fun stuff. Anyway, after I'm done coloring everything, I'm going to use the coordinating die sets to die cut all of these. So I'll tape the dies into place with washi tape like I always do, and then die cut them like everything in one go. So after I get all of this coloring done, and I had also chosen, like, I have extra images on here because of course, always need to finish the insides of my cards. So I have enough for the outsides and the insides. So after I get all that coloring done, I can die cut everything. And then I also die cut those backgrounds with the second largest of the A2 layers dies from Waffle Flower, which are, again, one of my most used dies. I've only had them for not even a month. It's been like 2 weeks since I got them, and I reach for them all the time. So die cut those just so that they'll be a nice little border when I put them onto the card base. And then I'm just going to kind of lay out all my characters, how I want them, just to kind of give me a rough idea of what I'm going to have on the outside, then, you know, the pieces I'll have on the inside. So I'm going to do this with both card fronts, kind of building my scene. And now you can see why I sprayed and used these colors like I did on this second panel, because I was kind of thinking of like a ball field. So same thing, got my little characters kind of laid out, figured out where I'm going to place them on my card. And then I can work on the sentiments, which are from both of these stamp sets. So I decided to keep things simple, just use my stamp platform again, and I'm going to just line up all the sentiments at once onto some black cardstock. Once I've got them all lined up, I can close the lid and then use my anti-static powder tool. And then I can stamp all these sentiments with Ink on 3's Juicy Clear Embossing Ink. And then I will heat emboss all of these sentiments with some Detail White embossing powder. So pour all that on, melt that with my heat tool, and then I can die cut all of these with some sentiment label dies so that everything is straight and die cut and good to go. So again, doing everything all in one step makes life easier, makes things faster. That is how I like to do it. So got all those die cut, trimmed down. And then to adhere all my characters, I am just using some thin 3D foam squares. So it doesn't add a ton of dimension, but it adds that little extra bit, you know, it just adds that little extra step that kind of bumps it up a little bit. So I'm going to pop all these on with these little foam squares. Some of them I trimmed down just by cutting the foam squares in half just to make them small enough to work. And then once everything's adhered, I'm going to adhere these card fronts to the bases with some Nouveau adhesive. Using just the liquid adhesive, so it gives me that wiggle room to get things, you know, lined up and straight on the actual card base, which is heavyweight white cardstock, cut to 4 1/4 by 11, scored at 5 1/2. So these are top folding A2 size cards. And then once I have the outsides adhered, I can start adhering everything onto the inside. So I've got like all these little extra characters and the sentiments to really finish off the inside of the card. So I'm going to adhere my sentiments, and then I can adhere the little like additional pieces here, especially for the baseball one. It's so cute. I love it. So get everything adhered. I had stamped and die cut an extra little baseball and some extra mats for it, and then got those in place. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing with the Tumble On stamp set. So get everything adhered, and then with this one, I thought it'd be fun to add just a few little embellishments. So I have the Stardust enamel dots from Waffle Flower, just the clear, sparkly ones. So I added those to this card. I didn't add any to the other card because I was gonna add white ones, but I was like, those would look confusing, as if there's like random balls being thrown in the air, you know, like it just didn't make sense. So I only added them to this one just for a little extra bling, you know, just to get my fix. And then the other card I just left as is. So this is part of a blog hop. There is giveaways, there's info on the new release, all that fun stuff. I will have it all in my blog post, which will be linked directly below the video, as well as a supply list and all that stuff. So you can check that out in the description box below. Thank you guys so much for watching and subscribing and thumbs upping and commenting on my videos. I really, really appreciate it. And I will see you all very soon in the next one. Bye.